Welcome back, everyone, to another exciting episode of Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh. This is our third part of Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh, and without any further ado, we'll have our opening prayer. Thank you so much.
My God, my adored one, my King, my desire, what tongue can voice my thanks to thee? I was heedless, thou didst awaken me. I have turned back from thee, thou didst graciously aid me to turn towards thee. I was as one dead, thou didst quicken me with the water of life. I was withered, thou didst revive me with a heavenly stream of thine utterance, which hath flowed forth from the pen of the All-Merciful. O divine providence, all existence is begotten by thy bounty. Deprive it not of the waters of thy generosity, neither do thou withhold it from the ocean of thy mercy. I beseech thee to aid and assist me at all times and under all conditions, and seek from the heaven of thy grace thine ancient favor. Thou art in truth the Lord of bounty and the sovereign of the kingdom of eternity. Bahá'u'lláh.
Thank you very much, David. And welcome, everyone. Welcome back to another wonderful episode. Here we go. So today we're going to be covering paragraphs 6 through 8. And I'm just going to share my screen with you so you can see what I am seeing. Okay. So this is our course, dear friends, Exploring the Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh. And for all of you new friends, what is the Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh? This is one of the world order letters that you can find in this text, the world order of Bahá'u'lláh. There you go. The world order of Bahá'u'lláh. So these were seven letters written by the beloved guardian. And these 7 letters are the world order of Bahá'u'lláh, the world order of Bahá'u'lláh, further considerations, the goal of a new world order, the golden age of the cause of Bahá'u'lláh, America and the most great peace, and then this very long letter called the Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh and the unfoldment of world civilization. So 7 letters were written by the beloved guardian. And this letter that we're studying is the 6th of these letters was written in 1934. Okay, so there you go. In this paragraphs that we're going to be covering today, paragraphs 6 through 8, these are the subtopics that we're going to be addressing. The first is progress made by the American believers. And as we have studied together, many of you, dear friends, the Advent of Divine Justice. And remember, Advent of Divine Justice was written in 1938, so 4 years after this. And so you can also, in that letter, you can see really marked progress by the American believers by 1938. But in Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh, the beloved guardian is addressing that too, talking about the progress made by the American believers. Another one of the topics is the evolution of the institutions. And this is a very key subject that comes across the entire Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh, and talking about the crystallization and evolution, the progress of these institutions, and namely the local spiritual assembly and the unfoldment of this world order of Bahá'u'lláh. So the institutions, the maturation of it, this is one of the themes that will be addressed. Developments in Persia and testimonies. This is very interesting. And I tried you can see all the testimonies in God Passes By. Okay, God Passes By is the beloved guardian's technically only book that he wrote. He only wrote one book technically, even though all his letters are book size, right? But technically, the only book that the beloved guardian wrote was God Passes By, and that was written in 1944 as on the centenary of the Declaration of the Bab. So 1844 to 1944, 100-year history of really the heroic age, and then entering into the first period of the 7-year plans, the 7-year plan and then 7-year plan, and that was an incredible period. So that in God Passes By, you get a fuller picture of the testimonies. And what is these testimonies? These are the testimonies of these great personages really saying, this faith is like no other faith that has ever come and become past. So, so these are testimonies of these great personages. And I've tried to find as many of these as I could and then have it with pictures, and so it becomes a really nice presentation. So I put this in because the Beloved Guardian mentions it in paragraph 6 through 8, these testimonies. The emergence of the independence of this faith, as well as assimilating the basic verities. Okay, so these are some of the key topics that we'll be addressing in these paragraphs. So without any further ado, let's read them. And so you'll start having it formulating in your mind. Okay? So our first reader is dear Manija Jan. Okay, you're our first reader, paragraph 6.
The international status which the religion of God has thus far achieved, moreover, imperatively demands that its root principle be now definitely clarified. The unprecedented impetus which the illustrious deeds of the American believers have lent to the outward march of the faith, the intense interest which the first Mashrabul Askar of the West is fast awakening among diverse races and nations, the rise and steady consolidation of Baha'i institutions in no less than 40 of the most advanced countries of the world, the dissemination of Baha'i literature in no fewer than 25 of the most widely spoken languages, the success that has recently attended the nationwide efforts of the Persian believers in the preliminary steps they have taken for the establishment in the outskirts of the capital city of their native land of the third Mashrabul Askar of the Baha'i world, the measures that are being taken for the immediate formation of their first national spiritual assembly representing the interest of the overwhelming majority of Baha'i adherents, the projected erection of yet another pillar of the Universal House of Justice, the first of its kind in the Southern Hemisphere, the testimonies, both verbal and written, that a struggle faith has obtained from royalty, from governmental institutions, international tribunals, and ecclesiastical dignitaries. The publicity it has received from the charges which unrelenting enemies, both new and old, have heard against it, the formal enfranchisement of the section of its followers from the fetters of Muslim orthodoxy in a country that may be regarded as the most enlightened among Islamic nations. These efforts, ample proof of the growing momentum with which the invincible community of the most great name is marching forward to ultimate victory.
Beautifully read, Manijijan. Thank you. Moving to paragraph 7. Dear Karen, could you read this one for us?
Yes. Dearly beloved friends, I feel it incumbent upon me, by virtue of the obligations and responsibilities which as guardian of the faith of Bahá'u'lláh, I am called upon to discharge, to lay special stress at a time when the light of publicity is being increasingly focused upon us, upon certain truths which lie at the basis of our faith, and the integrity of which it is our first duty to safeguard. These verities, if valiantly upheld and properly assimilated, will, I am convinced, powerfully reinforce the vigor of our spiritual life and greatly assist in counteracting the machinations of an implacable and vigilant enemy.
Excellent. Thank you, dear Karen. And moving to paragraph 8, let us have our next reader. Okay, Miss Claudia, could you read this one for us?
Unmute. Okay. To strive to obtain a more adequate understanding of the significance of Baha'u'llah's stupendous revelation must, it is my unalterable conviction, remain the first obligation and the object of the constant endeavor of each one of its loyal adherents. An exact and thorough comprehension of so vast a system, so sublime a revelation, so sacred a trust, is, for obvious reasons, beyond the reach and ken of our infinite minds. We can, however, and it is our bounden duty to seek to derive fresh inspiration and added sustenance as we labor for the propagation of his faith through a clearer apprehension of the truths it enshrines and the principles on which it is based.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So here, dear friends, are paragraphs 6 through 8. And I'm just going to scroll back because the longest paragraph was paragraph 6 that dear Manager Jean read. And in this paragraph, the beloved guardian is now saying that this faith has now reached an international status. And this is in 1934 when this was written. So it's now saying the international status which this religion of God has thus far achieved, now it is imperative, meaning it is requires, it is a must. It demands that its root principles be now definitely clarified. So what does this faith stand for? And so if you ask me, Ehsan, what is this dispensation of Baha'u'lláh? This is what this dispensation of Baha'u'lláh is. It is the clear, definite clarification of who the Blessed Bab is, who Baha'u'lláh is, who Abdul-Baha is, and what this administrative order is, as well as what these are is the fundamental verities of this faith. And the fundamental verities of the faith are, it is justly that. What do we, at the very basics of our faith, believe? What do you believe as a Baha'i? And this is what dispensation of Baha'u'lláh is. Okay, so now it's saying this international status of this Baha'i faith in 1934 demands that these root principles be clearly defined. And then it says, up to this point, this unprecedented impetus which the illustrious deeds of the American believers have lent to the onward march of the faith. And we saw this in our study of the advent of divine justice, from the great heroism of Martha Root to all these wonderful souls we studied in Advent of Divine Justice. These great heroines have massively lent this to the onward march of the faith, and the intense interest which the first Mashal Asghar of the West is fast awakening among the diverse races and nations. And at this point, in 1934, the external superstructure of the house of worship was not complete, but it was well underway. And they'd already completed the base, as well as they were also working on the top part of the structure to getting all the, per se, the facade, the external parts of the 9 exterior concrete marble ornamentation in place. So that was had already started, as well as it had garnered so much interest in the greater community. And they throughout the community, the greater community, and I showed this in the presentation on Advent, the community had been going around and presenting that marble cast in different areas. And so it was and then that picture would then go into the newspapers, and then that would garner even more interest. What is going on in Chicago, in this small city called Wilmette? And what in God's name are they, building right there beside that lake? What is that? And so people would be asking all these questions, and what is going on there? So it was garnering a lot of interest. And this was the first Mashallah scar of the West. And so this was an incredible rise in interest that was going on, as well as the rise and steady consolidation of the institutions in no less than 40 of the most advanced countries of the world. So also, this was the march of the institutions. So not only was national spiritual assemblies really starting to take off, as well as local spiritual assemblies were now starting to flourish in different areas of the world. Another major accomplishment was dissemination of Baha'i literature. It was also in 25 of the most widely spoken languages. So translations were going on. The success that has recently attended the nationwide efforts of the Persian believers in the preliminary steps they have taken for the establishment in the outskirts of the capital city of their native land. So this is a very interesting line, and this is the place where the beloved guardian is mentioning Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh, 1934. Now he is mentioning here the steps taken. This is capital city is Tehran. So the outskirts of the capital city of their native land. What does he say? The third Mashal Askar of the Baha'i world. So the third Mashal Askar. So the first one was in Ishqabat, okay? And we studied that in Advent of Divine Justice, what happened, how it came to be, and what transpired, and eventually how it was eventually raised to the ground, okay? The second Mashal Askar is the current Mashal Askar of the West, the house of worship in Wilmette, Illinois. The third one here that was supposed to be is the one that was supposed to be in Tehran, okay? And we also studied in Advent how that one was being due to the current government, and even the prior government and the current obstacles of opposition of the Islamic regime, that has not happened yet. But even the beloved guardian, 1934, he's saying that so many steps had been taken, the measures that had been taken for the preliminary steps and in the outskirts of that city. So many steps had been taken in preparation for the erection of a Mashal Askar in Tehran. So this is another incredible event. The first National Spiritual Assembly representing the interests of the overwhelming majority of the Baha'i adherents, the projected erection of yet another pillar of the Universal House of Justice, the first of its kind in the Southern Hemisphere. So this is a National Spiritual Assembly in the Southern Hemisphere. So each one of these, the beloved guardian is mentioning as a victory, an incredible victory that is happening throughout the world. The testimonies, both verbal and written, that a struggling faith has obtained from royalty, from governmental institutions, international tribunals, ecclesiastical dignitaries, the publicity it is received from the charges which unrelenting enemies, both new and old, have hurled against it. So these are all these testimonies, and you can see a much, 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 much fuller, per se, catalog of these testimonies in God Passes By. The beloved guardian does a very thorough, almost compilation of these testimonies in God Passes By, showing all of these testimonies of personages coming from the royalty to dignitaries to writers to you name it. Anyone and anyone who was a someone, the beloved guardian mentions them and says, this person has written or spoken lovingly with appreciation of the faith. And so this was, what the beloved guardian did. And then the formal enfranchisement of a section of its followers from the fetters of Muslim orthodoxy in a country that may be regarded as the most enlightened among the Islamic nations. So this is when the Islamic nation had, for the first time, independence. They declared independence from that declaration of independence from Islam. And that was where it says the first time most enlightened among Islamic nations. So these are the paragraphs, paragraph 6, and then we read paragraph 7. And then paragraph 7, whenever the beloved guardian starts again, dearly beloved friends, you can see it's a transitionary opening, right? So paragraph 6 was why he is now doing this, okay? He is saying, for the reasons of these reasons, that the faith has reached a certain point now I feel it incumbent upon me by virtue of the obligations and responsibilities which as guardian of the faith of Baha'u'lláh. So here he's talking as the guardian himself. I am the guardian of the faith. I feel it is my responsibility upon you and upon myself to discharge this special stress at this point in time. And what is this special stress he is pointing at this very time? He says, when the light of publicity is being increasingly focused upon us, upon certain truths which lie at the basis of our faith and the integrity of which it is our first duty to safeguard. And if you recall in part 2, which we studied last week, these fundamental verities, which are these essential truths. What does it mean to be a Baha'i? Advent to Divine Justice was, what does it mean to live the life? Now, Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh means, what does it mean to be a Baha'i, right? As the aspect B means belief. What do you believe? So now the beloved guardian is saying, because the time demands it, the faith has reached a certain point of emergence of, per se, out of this obscurity. The world's light is shining upon it, right? So we need to explain and get to the very heart of what does the faith stand for, the basis of our faith and the integrity. As Baha'is, we should do our absolute to safeguard the integrity of our faith. And these verities, if valiantly upheld and properly assimilated, the beloved guardian even says, I am convinced if you safeguard and you reinforce these, the beloved guardian says, will powerfully reinforce the vigor of our spiritual life and greatly assist in counteracting the machinations. What are machinations? Lies. So anyone that says anything untruths about this faith, if you are strong and you know what this faith stands for, you know the fundamental truths, you can counteract the machinations of an implacable and vigilant enemy. So you know what this faith stands for. This is what the beloved guardians say. So then, so well read, paragraph 8. Then the beloved guardian comes to his supreme point. He says, what does it mean? What should we do at this very moment? He says, to strive to obtain a more adequate understanding of the significance of Baha'u'llah's stupendous revelation must, it is mine unalterable conviction, remain the first obligation and the object of the constant endeavor of each one of its loyal adherents. Now, dear friends, this should be a quote you should memorize. This one-liner, see if you can memorize that, because this really means, what does it mean to be a Baha'i? to strive to obtain a more adequate understanding. What does this revelation of Baha'u'lláh, what is it? And how can you come to a greater understanding of what this revelation means, and what does it mean for me, and what is my part in it, and how can I play a greater role in the orchestration of the plan of God? So to strive to obtain a more adequate understanding. Then the beloved guardian says, an exact and thorough comprehension of so vast a system, so sublime a revelation, so sacred a trust, is for obvious reasons beyond the reach and ken of our finite minds. We'll never understand it all. It's beyond us. So that's what the beloved guardian says, it's beyond our understanding. But remember, we should still strive to obtain a more adequate understanding. That does not mean it's beyond us, so I'm going to give up. No, we should still keep at it, okay? We can, however, and it is our bounden duty. Bounden duty means we're committed. We should be committed to it. Almost like bounden duty means almost like we should be handcuffed, but with love, and is bounden duty to seek to derive fresh inspiration, added sustenance, as we labor for the propagation of his faith through a clear apprehension of the truths it enshrines and the principles on which it is based. So it is our duty. And just like you could say, I am bounden to oxygen. I'm bounden to oxygen. I can't go without oxygen. I have to have it. I am bounden to nourishment. I'm bounden to have food. And just like that, the beloved guardian says, you should be bounden to seek to derive fresh sustenance. Now, this is spiritual sustenance we're talking about, right? Not food. We're not going to become really overweight and have high cholesterol and all of the above, but it's what kind of sustenance we're talking about? Spiritual sustenance. And this is coming from this stupendous revelation, Baha'u'llah's stupendous revelation. So we should be bound and ready to seek to the shores of his revelation. And this is what was so well read in this paragraph. And so now we're going to march in. There's so many wonderful things that we're going to be getting into tonight. In paragraph 6 through 8, the beloved guardian, Shoghi Effendi, briefly reviews the international status that this faith has achieved by the time of writing this letter. In light of such a status, Shoghi Effendi feels responsible as the guardian of the Baha'i faith to place emphasis upon certain truths which lie at the basis of our faith and to clarify its root principles. He also states that developing an adequate understanding is so important, dear friends, an adequate understanding of this breathtaking revelation of Baha'u'lláh is the first duty and goal of every individual believer. Okay? Now, let us get into some of the key points from these paragraphs, and also then we're going to really dissect this and show you some really interesting things that we've got out from these paragraphs. The beloved guardian provides some brief statistics to illustrate the rise and steady consolidation of the Baha'i institutions. Also, at the time of writing this letter, various components of the Baha'i administrative order, including the local and national spiritual assemblies, had begun to emerge and function according to a unified form and spirit in 40 countries. In the annual report of the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States of America, presented to their National Convention of April 1935, there were glimpses of unprecedented victories achieved by the American Baha'i community. And this is, you can see, unprecedented victories. That was the words of the beloved guardian here. Unprecedented victories by the Baha'is of the United States. Despite all the restrictions imposed on them, the Persian Baha'i community finally succeeded in developing and implementing a comprehensive plan to elect their first National Spiritual Assembly in 1934. So in 1934 was an incredible year also for the National Spiritual Assembly of Iran and in Persia, the Persian Baha'i community. So they had their first National Spiritual Assembly. Also, they were doing the preliminary preparations for their Mashal Askar, which was supposed to be the third. The beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi refers in paragraph 6 to important testimonies on the significance and greatness of the Baha'i faith from prominent people around the world at the time of writing of this letter. So in this presentation, I'm going to show you some of those incredible testimonies. Also, the persecution of the Baha'is in Muslim countries such as Iran, Iraq, and Egypt had been a source of proclamation for the faith. And you can always see in almost all the writings, wherever there is crisis, there is victory. And so every time the faith has been attacked, every time the faith has been, per se, tried, attempts by the adversaries of the faith to try to crush the faith, has caused the faith to burn ever brighter and cause the faith to emerge ever stronger. And this is something that Bahá'u'lláh, even in the tablet, says, if you try to stamp me out on the land, I will rise up in the oceans. Well, if you try to take me out in the oceans, I will rise on the mountaintops. He says, this is, I paraphrase, but this is the aspect that this is the faith of God, and that wherever you try to crush, but this is the persecution of the Baha'is in Muslim countries. It caused even a greater source of proclamation for this faith. Then, striving to attain an adequate understanding of this revelation of Bahá'u'lláh should be the first duty of every faithful believer. All right, and so those, my dear friends, I believe are all the key points from the paragraphs. So now let's get into our study. So the first real point in paragraph 6 was this incredible progress made by the American believers. Okay, so let us get some readers. David, could you read this slide for us?
Vale. In paragraph 6, the beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi refers to two important developments in the American Baha'i community at the time. Number one, the extraordinary momentum generated as a result of the contribution made by the American believers to the progress of the faith. Number two, in the interest raised throughout many different nations by the first Mashriq al-Azkar in the West, in Wilmette, near Chicago, Illinois.
Excellently read. So you can see this is March 3rd, 1934. So you can see this is at the time of the writing of Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh. You can see this is what it looked like. So you can see how the house of worship is, the exterior is still, ornamentation is still not complete, but the dome part, the dome unit is completed in this picture here. So, okay. In the annual report of the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States presented to the National Convention of April 1935, there were glimpses of unprecedented victories achieved by the American Baha'i community. It reads, in no previous year of which there is record were there so many enrollments of new believers as in this Baha'i year, both in the number of new members added to the existing communities and in the number of groups prepared for election of a spiritual assembly for the first time. This period was one of remarkable growth. The teaching of the cause, reinforced by the mysterious power of the Mashal Askar, made more effective by the knowledge of the nature of the Baha'i community, received a vast stimulus, inaugurating a movement forward surely destined to acquire greater emphasis with every successive year. And here, dear friends, you can see this is the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States and Canada. And so that was what the Beloved Guardian was addressing, this incredible stimulus, this impetus that was occurred when he was addressing the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is in the United States. And this was what I was talking about, was this model of the house of worship. And so another evidence of the impact of the Master Lascar and Wilmette was the results produced by the exhibition of this model of the temple in the Century of Progress Exposition in Chicago in 1933. According to a report published in the Baha'i World, the model was located in a prominent position in the hall where all the visitors would pass in front of it. The organizer of the exhibition has estimated that 10,000 people from different parts of the world passed daily through the hall and listened to the attendants' description of the temple. Around 50,000 pamphlets titled, "What is the Baha'i Faith?" were distributed among the visitors. The exhibition produced immediate outcomes. Many of those who saw the model visited the temple and attended public meetings there. There was also an increased demand for Baha'i literature. So, silent teacher, right? That's in one of the titles of the Master Lascar is silent teacher. So just the existence of the building of this house of worship garnered so much interest. And so over 10,000 people from different parts of the world passed through this exhibition. And this is just one of the exhibitions. And this was in 1933. And there was many other places that this model of this house of worship was placed. And carrying on, in paragraph 6, now we're going to be looking at this evolution of the institutions. Such an incredible concept and such one of these themes that we'll be talking about throughout the whole dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh is this evolution of the institutions. In paragraph 6, the Beloved Guardian Shaykh Effendi provides some brief statistics to illustrate the rise and steady consolidation of the Baha'i institutions. At the time of the passing of Abdul Baha, the Baha'i institutions were fully defined, but not established. Although 35 countries were open to the faith, the Baha'i administration was not yet realized. During his ministry, the Beloved Guardian Shaykh Effendi he channeled the efforts of the Baha'i community into fully establishing the institutions of the Baha'i administration. So it was really during the ministry of the Beloved Guardian that the institutions of the faith reached that level of early maturation. Really, it was just that early maturation. And so that they could be into really what we are learning about as institutions in this day and age. And so it was during the time period and ministry of the Beloved Guardian. At the time of the writing of the Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh, various components of the Baha'i administrative order, including the local and national spiritual assemblies, had started to emerge and function according to a unified form and spirit in 40 countries. In 1934, 8 national spiritual assemblies had been established in the following regions: the British Isles, Germany and Austria, India and Burma, Egypt and Sudan, the United States and Canada, Iraq, Persia, and Australia and New Zealand. So these were the 8 national spiritual assemblies that had been established in the following regions. And these are the members of these national spiritual assemblies at that point in time. So this is the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States and Canada. And you can see these wonderful members in this picture, and they're standing in the background of the temple. And this is the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of Germany and Austria. This is the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of India and Burma in the same time period, 1935-1936. This is the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of Iraq. And this is the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of Egypt. I like their fezzes, very, very nice. You can see the different cultures. And here's the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of Great Britain and Ireland. And here's the first National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of Australia and New Zealand. And you can see the Duns, Hyde Dunn and Clara Dunn. And here's the first National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of Iran, 1934-1935. So these were the 8 national spiritual assemblies that the Beloved Guardian is addressing here. And in paragraph 6, the Beloved Guardian also refers to the achievements of the Persian Baha'i community. Despite all the restrictions imposed upon them, the Persian Baha'i community finally succeeded in developing and implementing a comprehensive plan to elect their first national spiritual assembly. And this is their first national spiritual assembly. In 1934, more than 500 local communities participated in the election of the delegates to attend the first national convention held over 8 days at the end of April 1934. In the convention of 84 of the 95 elected delegates were present. So this was an incredible occasion, the first National Spiritual Assembly of Iran, 1934. And then the Beloved Guardian also mentions that preliminary work had been done for preparation for the third Mashal Askar. So the purchase of the land for Iran's first Mashal Askar, in accordance, this is coming from Baha'i World, so this is direct quotes. Purchase of the land for Iran's first Mashal Askar, in accordance with the Guardian's instructions. This land consists of a property known as Hadiqeh, paradise, situated among the Shimran Hill villages on the slopes of the Alborz Mountains, about 6 miles to the northeast of Tehran, and commanding a beautiful view of the city at present, pending the construction of a direct road at some future time. It may be reached in 20 minutes by auto from the capital. The land acquired at a cost of 176,000 rials is a tract of 1,257,000 square meters, and unlike most parts of Shimran, it is relatively level and fertile. 2 subterranean water courses come to the surface on this land. In addition, it has an allotment by law of 161 hours of purchased water, which is ample for irrigation of the garden and some of the farm area. So the area was substantially large, covered a wonderful area on the slopes of the Alborz Mountains, right here. Very similar to what I would say to the wonderful house of worship in Santiago that sits on the slopes of the mountains there. So this is an incredible area in the third Mashal Askar, which was supposed to be the third Mashal Askar. The first Mashal Askar of Iran was supposed to sit here on the slopes of the Alborz Mountains overlooking Tehran. On May 4th, 1953, the Beloved Guardian Shoghi Effendi announced the area of land purchased on the slopes of the Alborz Mountain overlooking the city of Tehran. in anticipation of the construction of the first Mashallah Asghar of Persia has reached approximately 4 million square meters. So remember, 1934, the beloved guardian had, see, this is written Baha'i World 1934 through 36. So this is around the same, remember, Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh in 1934. So they had already acquired over 1.2 million square meters. Now, 1953, this is 4 years before the passing of the guardian, 1957. Now, at this point in time, they have already reached approximately 4 million square meters of acquisition for the construction for this Mashallah Asghar. So it was going to be an incredible tract of land on an incredible area, sizable area for this house of worship. The Iranian authorities confiscated this land during the recent persecution of the Baha'is in Iran. So this entire tract of land, this entire area was confiscated. Okay, moving on to testimonies. Any questions so far, or we're good? Excellent. Okay, moving on to testimonies. Okay, let me get a reader. Let me have Miss Pam. Could you read this one for us?
Sure. In paragraph 6, Shoghi Effendi refers to important testimonies to the significance and greatness of the Baha'i faith from prominent people around the world at the time of writing the letter. The most important, perhaps, is the statement made by the Queen Marie of Romania, in which she mentions the writings of the Baha'i faith as a great cry toward peace, reaching beyond all limits of frontiers, above all dissension about rights and dogmas. She then commends to her readers that if ever the name of Baha'u'lláh or Abdul Baha comes to your attention, do not put their writings from you. Search out their books and let their glorious peace-bringing, love-creating words and lessons sink into your ears as they have into mine.
Beautifully read. Thank you, Ms. Pam. So this is probably the greatest testimony coming from the first reigning monarch, Queen Marie of Romania. And you can see this is the letter coming from Queen Marie writing, the Baha'i teaching brings peace and understanding. It is like a wide embrace gathering together all those who have long searched for words of hope. It accepts all great prophets gone before it, destroys no other creeds, and tears all doors open. Saddened by the continued strife amongst believers of many confessions, and wearied of their intolerance towards each other, I discovered in the Baha'i teaching the real spirit of Christ, so often denied and misunderstood. Unity instead of strife, hope instead of condemnation, love instead of hate, and a great reassurance for all men. And then she signs it, Marie. So this is an incredible open confession of her understanding of the Baha'i faith. And here's some pictures. We studied this in Advent of Divine Justice, as the beloved guardian mentions her in the Advent of Divine Justice. And that letter was written in 1938. So here's some pictures of this great Queen Marie of Romania. And this is her letter, and that she wrote the day after she received the Baha'u'lláh and the New Era from Martha Root. So the day after she received Baha'u'lláh and the New Era, that was written by John Esselmont. The day after she received that incredible text. She stayed up all night reading Baha'u'lláh in the New Era. And the next day, because she was such a popular queen, she was like the Oprah Winfrey of her day. She was very popular, okay? Everyone loved Queen Maria of Romania. And what she would do was she would write this column called Queen's Counsel, okay? And this was like an advice column. And that would go around and be distributed in all the newspapers. And so this is what the queen's thoughts were. The queen, and so because she wasn't just the queen of Romania, she was considered the queen of the world in that. She was so popular. So anyway, everyone would read the Queen's Counsel. That's what it was called, the Queen's Counsel. So this is what she wrote in her column. And this is, so let's have someone read this because it's pretty much her open confession. Miss Gabrielle, could you read this one for us?
Okay. An American woman brought me the other day a book.
Pause right there. This is Martha Root. Martha Root brought me, meaning Queen Maria of Romania, a book, and that was Baha'u'lláh and the New Era. Okay, carry on. Sorry, Gabrielle.
Okay. I spell it with a capital letter because it is glorious book of love and goodness, strength and beauty. Your countrywoman gave it me because she had learned I was in grief and sadness and wanted to help. She put it into words to my hand, saying, "You seem to live up to his teachings." And when I opened the book, I saw it was the word of Abdu'l-Baha, prophet of love and kindness, and of his father, the great teacher of international goodwill and understanding, of a religion which links all creeds. Their writings are a great cry towards peace, reaching beyond all limits of frontiers, above all dissension about rights and dogmas. It is a religion based upon the inner spirit of God, upon that great, not to be overcome variety that God is love, meaning just that. It teaches that all hatreds, intrigues, suspicions, evil words, all aggressive patriotism, even are outside the one essential law of God, and that special beliefs are but surface things, whereas the heart that beats with divine love know no tribe nor race. It is a wondrous message that Baha'u'lláh and his son Abdu'l-Baha have given us. They have not set it up aggressively, knowing that the germ of eternal truth, which lies at its core, cannot take root and spread. There is only one great verity in it, love, the mainspring of every energy, tolerance towards each other, knowing each other, helping each other, forgiving each other. It's Christ's message taken up anew, in the same words almost, but adapted to the 1,000 years and more differences that lie between the year one and today. No man could fail to be better because of this book. I commend it to you all. If ever the name of Baha'u'lláh or Abdu'l-Baha come to your attention, do not put their writings from you. Search out their books and let their glorious, peace-bringing, love-creating words and lessons sink into your hearts as they have into mine. One's busy days seem too full for religion, or one may have religion that satisfies. But the teachings of these gentle, wise, and kindly men are compatible with all religions and with no religion. Seek them and be the happier. The Cincinnati Enquirer.
Beautifully read. Thank you, Miss Gabrielle. So this was her insight. Her heart was moved. Her heart was touched. by the message of Baha'u'lláh, by the presence of Martha Root. And so even we read the encounter of Miss Martha Root with Queen Marie of Romania in our Advent to Divine Justice course. And that encounter that the next day, Martha Root said that Queen Marie of Romania had stayed up all night reading the Baha'u'lláh in the New Era. And then this is the product. She wrote this incredible message in his writing, A Book of Love. And this is her, just one case of her open confession of her belief in Baha'u'lláh. So this is an incredible testimony. And the Beloved Guardian says this is a testimony of the royalty, the first monarch acceptance of the revelation of Baha'u'lláh. So some other testimonies that I've put into this presentation. So I'm going to, I've included here for you. And here's a list of prominent people with their statements on the faith. And it is given in volume 5 of the Baha'i World. So there's Professor Edward Granville Brown, Dr. Auguste Forel, Helen Adams Keller. So Helen Keller, I'm sure all of you have heard of this one. President Masaryk of Czechoslovakia, Ernest Renan, and Leo Tolstoy. So these are some individuals that I've pulled together so you can get a fuller picture of who they are and what they're going to say as testimonies to the faith. So here's Professor Edward Granville Brown, and he was a British Orientalist from Cambridge University, and he had published many books and articles on the Babi and Baha'i religions, and he had the unique privilege of being in the presence of Baha'u'lláh. And here's a picture of him as a young man and as an older Edward Granville Brown. So there's 2 different pictures of him there. As the only Westerner to meet Baha'u'lláh at Bahji in 1890, he describes the details of this meeting thus. This is such a powerful quote. So I'm going to let someone read this for us. Okay, Miss Valerie, could you read this one for us?
Yes.
Thank you.
As the only Westerner to meet Baha'u'lláh at Bahji in 1890, he described the details of this meeting thus. Though I dimly suspected whither I was going and whom I was to behold, for no distinct intimation had been given to me, a second or 2 elapsed ere, with a throb of wonder and awe, I became definitely conscious that the room was not untenanted. In the corner where the divan met the wall sat a wondrous and venerable figure. The face of him on whom I gazed I can never forget, though I cannot describe it. Those piercing eyes seemed to read one's very soul. Power and authority sat on that ample brow. No need to ask in whose presence I stood, as I bowed myself before one who is the object of a devotion and love which kings might envy and emperors sigh for in vain.
Thank you, Miss Valerie.
You're welcome.
So here is the account, the brief account of Professor Edward Granville Brown's encounter, his meeting with His Holiness Baha'u'lláh. You know, no need to ask in whose presence I stood, as I bowed myself before one who is the object of a devotion and love, which kings might envy and emperors sigh for in vain. What an incredible words that he captured here, because it gives you that mental picture of someone so unbelievably awe-inspiring and breathtaking that could not even imagine to be in the presence of one like that. So this is such a wonderfully worded encounter by Edward Granville Brown. Okay. And so this is also from Edward Granville Brown. It's a mild, dignified voice bade me be seated, and then continued. So this is more, he continues. Praise be to God that thou hast attained, thou hast come to see a prisoner and an exile. We desire but the good of the world and the happiness of the nations. Yet they deem us a stir up of strife and sedition, worthy of bondage and banishment, that all nations should become one in faith and all men as brothers, that the bonds of affection and unity between the sons of men should be strengthened, that diversity of religion should cease and differences of race be annulled. What harm is there in this? Yet so it shall be. These fruitless strifes, these ruinous wars shall pass away, and the most great peace shall come. Do not you in Europe need this also? Is not this that which Christ foretold? Yet do we see your kings and rulers lavishing their treasures more freely on means for the destruction of the human race than on that which would conduce to the human happiness of mankind. These strifes and this bloodshed and discord must cease, and all men be as one kindred and one family. Let not a man glory in this, that he loves his country. Let him rather glory in this, that he loves his kind. So something else that I want to share. So this is from the notes of Edward Granville Brown. This is His Holiness Bahá'u'lláh talking in this extract. Also, I want this extract, this part of this extract right here is what the Reverend Jessup, when he did his first announcement, for his first intimation of the Baha'i faith in 1893 in the United States. It comes from this paragraph here from Edward Granville Brown in the announcement. What is this faith? So he says, do not you in Europe need this also? Is this not that which Christ foretold? So he says, yet so shall be, these fruitless strifes, these ruinous wars shall pass away, and the most great peace shall come. So this is also re-quoted by Reverend Jessup in 1893 as the first announcement of the Baha'i faith in 1893 in the United States, in that exhibition. So this is was a significant testimony by Reverend Jessup here. Another incredible individual was Dr. Auguste Forel. Forel, there's a picture of him with his white beard and this black hat. He was a psychiatrist. He was a researcher of the brain and of ants. This is ants with A-N-T-S, not the sisters with the U. Okay, these are little creatures that crawl on the ground. Ants. And he was the director of the clinic Berkeley, this hard to pronounce European city, and a professor at the University of Zurich. In 1902, he made the Testimony on the Faith. This is an incredibly important also individual, Dr. Auguste Forel. This is what he wrote. He says, I learned at Karlsruhe of the supra-confessional world religion of the Baha'is founded in the Orient 70 years ago by a Persian, Bahá'u'lláh. This is the real religion of social welfare, without dogmas or priests, binding together all men of this small terrestrial globe of ours. I have become a Baha'i. May this religion live and prosper for the good of humanity. This is my most ardent desire. There is bound to be a world state, a universal language, and a universal religion. He moreover has stated, the Baha'i movement for the oneness of mankind is, in my estimation, the greatest movement today working for universal peace and brotherhood. We can find these extracts also in God Passes By. And as I mentioned, in God Passes By, the beloved guardian, God bless him, he's done a compilation of all these testimonies. And so it's very easy to, if you want to see all these testimonies, you could see them all there in God Passes By. And so this is just an extract of Dr. Auguste Forel. And this was such a significant personage in that point in time, and very well respected. And he openly also declared his testimony saying, I am a Baha'i, I believe this, and this is my most ardent desire. So an interesting short account of the life of this eminent world-renowned psychiatrist, entomologist, that's the insect kind of guy, entomologist, and anatomist, social reformer, and peace reformer, Auguste Forel, born in 1848 on the shores of Lake Geneva in Switzerland. The account of Forel's life was first written on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of Forel's passing, 1981. Throughout his life, Forel tried to understand religion, free from dogma and superstition, for he considered that true religion should be for the social good of all mankind. He deplored the fact that there was so much superstition in organized religion. All his life, he had believed in the things that Bahá'u'lláh, the founder of the Baha'i faith, had taught, without even realizing its source. It was in the last 10 years of his life that he first came across the Baha'i faith. And from then on, he wholeheartedly supported it, for he recognized it as being the church of tomorrow. That's his words, the church of tomorrow. He considered the Baha'i faith to be the true religion of human social good, without dogmas or priests, uniting all men on this small terrestrial globe. In a codicil to his will in 1921, he wrote, I have become a Baha'i. May this religion live and prosper for the good of mankind. This is my most ardent wish. And on first hearing of the Baha'i faith, Forel corresponded with Abdul Baha. And there's tablets of Abdul Baha to Auguste Forel. And in reply, His Holiness Abdul Baha wrote to him one of the most weighty letters ever written on the subject of philosophy. If ever there was any doubt in academic circles that Auguste Forel was a Baha'i, this study confirms the fact. So another incredible testimony, and see, all of these are individuals that I'm up to 1934, so this is acceptance of the faith prior to 1934, because that's when the Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh was written. So Helen Keller, she was an American lecturer, author, and activist. Although she was not dead, I apologize, deaf. What's one letter spelling changes meaning, right? But she has passed away now. But at that point in time, she was just deaf, not dead. Although she was deaf and blind since early childhood, she overcame her disabilities and became well known internationally for her efforts to educate others about the blind and raising funds for related charities. She was deeply committed to social change. And here's a picture of Miss Helen Keller. Miss Helen Keller, this is carrying on. In a personal letter, Helen wrote to an American Baha'i after reading the Braille edition of Baha'u'lláh and the New Era. So this is the Braille edition of it. This Baha'u'lláh and the New Era. Okay, I'm going to pause 2 seconds here. This, if you haven't read Baha'u'lláh and the New Era recently, I encourage you to read it and then read it again and then read it again and then read it again. Because every Baha'i should master Baha'u'lláh New Era. That is a text. 3.5 chapters were revealed by Abdul Baha for Baha'u'lláh New Era. So it's the words of Abdul Baha in Baha'u'lláh New Era. It's not just Esselman's writing of Baha'u'lláh New Era. So there's divine text in it. On top of it, dear friends, that is the textbook per se of what is the introductory book for the Baha'i faith. So you should master it. The Blood Guardian says, master Baha'u'lláh New Era, okay? And it has been translated into more languages than any other Baha'i book is Baha'u'lláh New Era. So it is even in Braille of all things. And that's how Helen Keller got introduced to it. So this is what she read and stated. She says, not verbally, because she was deaf and dumb, but I guess she signed it, or I'm not sure how she said it, but this is what came not her words, but her signs. It says the philosophy of Baha'u'lláh deserves the best thought we can give it. I am returning the book so that other blind people who have more leisure than myself may be shown a ray of divinity and their hearts be bathed in an inundation of eternal love. I take this opportunity to thank you for your kind thought of me and for the inspiration which even the most cursory reading of Baha'u'llah's life cannot fail to impart. What nobler theme than the good of the world and the happiness of the nations can occupy our lives? The message of universal peace will surely prevail. It is useless to combine or conspire against an idea which has in it potency to create a new earth and a new heaven, and to quicken human beings with a holy passion of service. So this is the testimony of Helen Keller. Then we move to this President Masaryk of Czechoslovakia. So I'm going to get our next reader. Let me find our next reader. Miss Luann. Miss Luann, can you read this one for us?
May I please pass?
Of course, Miss Luann.
Thank you.
Okay. Miss Priscilla, could you read this one for us?
Thomas Masaryk was an Austro-Hungarian Czechoslovak politician, as well as a sociologist and philosopher. He was the founder and the first president of Czechoslovakia. In an audience with an American Baha'i journalist in Prague in 1928, he comments in reference to the Baha'i faith, quote, "Continue to do what you are doing. Spread this teaching of humanity and not wait for the diplomats. It is a great thing that official people are beginning to talk about these universal peace principles. Take them to the diplomats, the peace societies, the universities, the schools, the churches, and also write about them. It is the people who will bring the universal peace," end quote.
Beautifully read. Thank you so much. So this is the words of President Masaryk. This is the first president of Czechoslovakia, an incredible individual. He was a politician, a sociologist, as well as a philosopher. Right? Another individual. Now, this is an incredible writer. He was a French philosopher. He's Ernest Renan. And Renan is best known for his influential historical works on early Christianity and for his political theories. He made moving comments testifying to the events surrounding the declaration of the Bab, as well as his martyrdom, as recorded in the Baha'i world. And you could go to early Baha'i worlds, and you could read his testimonies there. So I didn't want to, it's much longer testimonies, and I didn't want to pull, multiple slides for his testimonies, but you can go into his reference, and that you can see the reference where it is in the Baha'i World, volume 8, page 622. So that's if you want to go and read his testimonies, but he was an incredible writer, very influential. So you can see that every one of these testimonies are coming from different disciplines, writers, statesmen, politicians, notables, every one of them touched by this, from royalty, all of them touched by the spirit of this revelation of Baha'u'lláh. And that's why in God Passes By, the beloved guardian did this per se mini compilation of all of these different testimonies of different individuals, showing how this faith was touching the hearts of the wide diverse peoples coming from all different backgrounds of peoples and different disciplines and different degrees of education from and notable individuals from all walks of life. Another incredible writer, philosopher, and one of the greatest novelists is this Russian writer called Leo Tolstoy. And Leo Tolstoy is considered by many as the world's greatest novelist. And he is commented in a letter written to Madame Isabel Grinevskaya, dated 22nd October 1903. This is what he wrote. I have known about the Babis for a long time and have always been interested in their teachings. It seems to me that these teachings, as well as all the rationalistic social religious teachings that have arisen lately out of the original teachings of Brahmanism, Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, distorted by the priests, have a great future for this very reason, that these teachings, discarding all these distorting incrustations that cause division, aspire to unite into one common religion of all mankind. The teachings of the Babis, which come to us out of Islam, have, through Baha'u'llah's teachings, been gradually developed and now present us with the highest and purest form of religious teaching. So this is from Leo Tolstoy, considered by many as the world's greatest novelist. And this is a very famous quote from Leo Tolstoy. He says, "We spend our lives trying to unlock the mystery of the universe, but there was a Turkish prisoner, Baha'u'lláh, in Akka, Palestine, who had the key." That's such an awesome extract quote from Leo Tolstoy. We spend all our lives trying to unlock the mystery of the universe. But there was someone called Bahá'u'lláh who has the key. So true. So those were just some of the testimonies, dear friends. There were many others. This would be a full-on presentation if I pulled every one of them, but I just pulled some of them, okay? And to show you that there were so many testimonies from all of these great personages, okay? Checking time, we have 9 minutes. So carrying on. Independence of the faith, okay? The persecution of the Baha'is in Muslim countries such as Persia, Iraq, and Egypt had been a source of proclamation for the Baha'i faith. And in paragraph 6, the beloved guardian refers to an incident that occurred in Egypt, resulting in the Islamic court confirming the independence of the Baha'i faith from Islam. So this is what happened in the Islamic court that occurred in Egypt. And that's why it said one of the, sorry. I want to quote it correctly. So I'm going to pull it it was in this paragraph. It says, regarded as the most enlightened among the Islamic nations. Okay, and so this is what the beloved guardian is talking about Egypt here. So that was in reference to Egypt, as it had now the formal enfranchisement of a section of its followers from the fetters of Muslim orthodoxy in a country that may be regarded as the most enlightened among the Islamic nations. Okay, so this is, Egypt had now formally declared that this faith was independent. So this was a significant development. And how did that come about? This incredible lady went there. And does anyone know who this is? Of course, it's Martha Root. So Miss Martha Root, she went on 4 global trips. And on one of her adventures, she was in Egypt. And this is Miss Martha Root with Aziz Yazdi and some other Baha'is of Cairo, Egypt, circa 1925. So this was on one of her trips. She was helped visiting the community of Egypt and also meeting with the leaders there to help establish the faith and establish its independence. So there was no civil law in Egypt in 1925, and hence all Egyptian subjects were under the control of Islamic law regarding matters such as marriage, divorce, and some Muslim women whose husbands had become Baha'is appealed for divorce on the basis that their husbands had abandoned Islam. So this is also, again, more pictures of, these are Baha'is, Port Said, Egypt, 1925. So this is the very early times in Egypt. So what happened? In considering the appeal, the Islamic court, after detailed consideration of the fundamentals of the Baha'i faith, ruled May 10th, 1925. This is what it reads. Translation is on the left, unless someone wants to read this part. But the translation is on the left. It says, all these prove definitely that the Baha'i religion is a new religion with an independent platform and laws and institutions peculiar to it, and show a different and contradictory belief to the beliefs and laws and commandments of Islam. Nor can we state a Baha'i to be a Muslim or the reverse, as we cannot say of a Buddhist or a Brahmin or a Christian that he is a Muslim or the reverse. So this is the significant development. The faith has been declared May 10th, 1925 in an Islamic country as independent. So this was big. And so this is also Baha'i marriage certificate. Now having the first time marriage being acceptable and adopted and enforced by the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of Egypt. So incredible development in a Muslim country. So the last, checking our time, 4 minutes. Okay, let's maybe get one more part done. In paragraph 7 and 8, the beloved guardian once more stresses the importance of the basic verities of the faith. And if you recall from part 2, which we just covered in last week, was the importance of these fundamental verities. And if you missed how important it was, reread paragraph 8, okay, where it says, reread that paragraph 8 where it says, I'm just going to, it starts off, to strive to obtain a more adequate understanding of the significance of Baha'u'llah's stupendous revelation must, it is my unalterable conviction, remain the first obligation and the object of the constant endeavor of each one of its loyal adherents. Paragraph 8. Reread that, because this is really at the very heart and crux of what the dispensation of Baha'u'lláh is about, is presenting these fundamental verities, these truths of what the Baha'i faith stands for. And grasping and upholding these verities will enrich our spiritual lives and will help us to counteract any forms of lies, machinations, mischievous plans of a stubborn and watchful enemy. And remember, at the time of these writings, there were covenant breakers who would write things and try to distort what the faith would stand for. So the beloved guardian was saying, let's all the Baha'is have a clear understanding of what this faith stands for. Okay, so the beloved guardian states that striving to acquire a more adequate understanding of the revelation of Baha'u'lláh should be its first duty and the focus of the sustained efforts of every faithful follower of the Baha'i faith. And then, of course, he states, although a full comprehension of this revelation is beyond the limits of our understanding, but, capital but, but we should still empower us to derive a fresh inspiration and take further nourishment that in turn it will support and maintain our services to the cause. For example, we'll never comprehend the depths of the ocean. We'll never comprehend the ocean. But you should not say, oh, I'm not, it's too large. I'll never comprehend the ocean. So I'll just stay on the beach and enjoy the beach. No, Baha'u'lláh says, go immerse yourself in the ocean of my words. So you got to approach the ocean and dive head first in, and soak in and live in the word, the creative word. So he says, and there we are, dear friends. Perfect timing, 8:29. I love it. So that is our third part. So happy, finish on time. That makes me always happy. So that is our synopsis of paragraphs 6 through 8. Okay, next week is Thanksgiving week. So we're going to take a week off. Okay, and as always, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Happy Thanksgiving. Wishing you the best of time with you and your bird, and enjoy your time. And any questions at this point? Thoughts, learnings through paragraph 6 through 8?
Homework.
I love it. Good job, David. I'll send that out to the class, okay? I'll email everyone the recording, and I'll email it to everyone. Homework we're going to be covering because we're going to have 1 week off, so that will also afford you time to read and stay in the frame of mind. So we'll be covering paragraphs 9 through, I believe, 11 next time, but I might be wrong. I'll send you the exact paragraphs for next time. Okay. Excellent. Anything else before we close it down for tonight? No.
Happy Thanksgiving and love to the family.
Thank you very much, Miss Pam.
Yes.
Thank you so much, you guys, and always a pleasure. And from all of us, I love each one of you guys all across Texas. I'm so happy to see each one of you guys. It makes my whole week. And so let's have our closing prayer, and then you all can enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much.
Oh my God, oh my God, thou seest me in my lowliness and weakness, occupied with the greatest undertaking, determined to raise thy word among the masses and to spread thy teachings among thy peoples. How can I succeed unless thou assist me with the breath of the Holy Spirit? Help me to triumph by the hosts of thy glorious kingdom, and shower upon me thy confirmations, which alone can change a gnat into an eagle, a drop of water into rivers and seas, and anatomy into lights and suns. O my Lord, assist me with thy triumphant and effective might, so that my tongue may utter thy praises and attributes among all people, and my soul overflow with the wine of thy love and knowledge. Thou art the omnipotent and the doer of whatsoever thou willest.
Thank you very much, every one of you. Have a wonderful evening, you guys. Good night.
Aloha.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aloha and
Happy Thanksgiving.
happy Thanksgiving to each one of you guys.
Aloha.
And to you.
And